And it's not about the money. It's about what it provides you in your lifestyle, what you can do to spend time with your friends and family, and how many people you can help now, educate, and do what you really want to do instead of what you have to do to make money. It's not about the money. Wealth is not money. Wealth is happiness and being able to do what you love to do every day. And really helping other people is 10 times or 100 times greater than getting a check. I'm sorry, but once you have the checks, it doesn't matter as much, okay? Before you get started, though, you have to do due diligence. You can't buy a property without going and seeing it. You can, it's a mistake. Always go see it. Trust me, okay? We bought some properties that I relied on an outside source. And every time I relied on a source in the beginning when I did this, it turned out bad. But you can go and do your homework. Fly to a different market if you want to go see it. If it costs you $1,000 bucks, it's going to save you, 50 later on. So just go check it out. Go see what's going on. And your team members are really important too. Whether it's here, right in your backyard, or in another state, you have to have the right team members. Nobody wants to manage property and get that phone call at 2 a.m. with a toilet call or an issue, or have to collect the rents, and it really does take up a lot more time than you think. So what due diligence needs to be done on property investments? Okay? First is your neighborhood analysis. You don't buy in the ghetto. I don't care how many people think it's great. You might get a Section 8 tenant that pays perfectly, but I'm telling you, you do not want to buy in the ghetto. More vandalism, more theft, more bad debts from the tenants, a lot more issues. Tenants moving out in the middle of the night, the quality of the tenant is a lot less in those low-end neighborhoods as far as their financial situation and their professionalism and everything else. You start to look at those issues, and we lost a ton of money buying in the wrong areas, relying on other people in the beginning. And you don't want to do that. You want to go through and do your own homework. Market value analysis, very, very key, especially if you're getting financing. Right now, in this kind of a market, it's tough to get real comparable comps going on. And you want to analyze the property based on what the value is, how much equity you're getting, as well as your cash flow. And if you're trying to get financing involved, the typical appraiser is going to want to see 6 comparable sales. They use 3 and they want 3 backups. Within a mile, or their typical requirement is a mile, but they want 0.75 or 0.5. And within the last 6 months. And sometimes that's hard to find right now when there's a ton of foreclosures out there. So look at those things and take that into consideration. Rental analysis. How much cash flow are you getting? Are you including a vacancy allowance? Are you including a repairs allowance? Those are the types of things that people don't tell you. Okay? Always include a vacancy allowance. Always include a repairs allowance. Those things happen. And they happen on average, on an average basis every year where it's predictable. Renovation analysis. Do you have a breakdown of materials and labor? Have you looked at the contracts from the renovators? Renovators will steal from you. Shocker, huh? But I'm telling you, it's amazing. We got stolen from, so we were doing a rehab on an 8-unit property, and they stole $35,000 from us. They were supposed to do the plumbing and electrical on this building, and they did none of it. So that we go turn the we go turn the water on, and plumbing destroys the place. Just breaks everything. And so those are the types of things that can happen. And I talked to my attorney. It's going to take 2 years and way more than 35 grand to deal with it. So if I would have done my homework up front on that case, I probably would have saved my money. Closing document review. There's a lot of different fees that can be negotiated. It's a lot easier now because the lenders have a lot tighter requirements on what they can charge and can't charge. However, there's title charges. There's tons of different costs are involved that you want to analyze and look at, because on every transaction, if it saves you $1,000 or a couple $1,000, that's huge. Cash flow analysis, like I was saying about you're not only analyzing the cash flow, but you're analyzing the return on investment. So what is your return relative to your risk? I had a client come up to me and say, hey Matt, why would I invest with you? You're looking at like a 15% return, and I'm seeing these other guys at 125%. This is great. Can you show me what's going on? And it was leveraged at 90% in 07. So all of those people lost their money. And my investment was no leverage at all. It was all cash under market value. And so you look at those differences, and you look at the risk level differences of different investment types. It's not just about the return, but the risk relative to that return. Insurance coverage. we fired a couple of these guys by not having the right education to be able to educate us enough about what we should or shouldn't have covered. So you want a DP3 policy if you have a rental policy, because it covers any kind of vandalism and theft on the property. It can cover loss of rents coverage. There's a lot of different things. We just had, this is kind of funny, we had a tree fall in a house. Destroyed the house. Well, we were all into the house for $60,000, and it was insured for $125,000. So we're like, great, because that's the replacement cost. They can't rebuild it for the $60,000 anymore. So those are the types of things that you want to look out for and have the right insurance coverage in place, and make sure you have an insurance agent that knows what they're doing and invests in real estate themselves. Property management will make or break your investment. If you have people that are not putting the eviction notices on the doors timely, they're not following up on collections, there's a lot of problems. This is not something where it's a really easy job. It's really not easy to do property management. You deal with every excuse in the book. We had, for example, this is the biggest nightmare we've had with our tenants. We bought a property with a tenant in there. I'll never do that again. We had a lady that was bedridden. She was 500 pounds and could not get up. A very, very sad situation. I went in there trying to help her with my business card, saying, here, look, tell me, I'm going to try to catch you up on your rents, $50 a month. She gave me this sad sob story about how her child's father got into drugs and he started cashing her Social Security checks and things like that. And I'm like, okay, look, I'm going to try to really help you. I wanted to try to help her, and I was trying to help her every month with her financial situation. She doesn't pay, doesn't pay, doesn't pay. I come back, there's a sliding glass door just broken all over the ground right next to her, and I'm going, what happened? And she says, I don't know. I was just sitting there and I looked over and it was broken. I'm like, now you're full of it. Give me a break. Like, you're not dead. Come on. You know what's happening. But make a long story short, it took 15 firemen and a Zuzu trooper and a cargo net to evict her, and about $5,000 worth of damage. And so that's the type of thing that can happen if you get a tenant or a bad tenant. And there are professional tenants out there that will specifically try to move in and not pay. So if you don't do your background checks, it's your own fault. You got to do it. Don't get lazy. It costs you 40 bucks, 20 bucks to get a background check. This is the due diligence package that we provide on all of our investments, and you guys should be getting it whenever you're investing, whether it's on your own or with us. Before and after rehab pictures and video. An inspection report, comparables or an appraisal on the property, the rental analysis, profit and cash flow analysis. Look at the property tax assessor's report. Look at the neighborhoods. Are there cars with 50-inch rims in the neighborhood and overgrown grass and not kept up houses and things like that? Look for that type of sign. Marketing materials we provide, the insurance we help our investors with, as well as we're reviewing all the closing documents. But even greater than that, we help our investors with their financial plan. Should they be investing in real estate in the first place? Is this investment right for them? Do they have a reserve set up? A lot of people will sell properties to investors and say, here, go ahead, I don't care if this is all your money left. That's a mistake. You always want to have a reserve when it comes to real estate. So team members, property management, look at those contracts. What are the monthly fees that they charge? Do they have references? How many properties do they manage, and have they taken on another 300 in the last month? That happened to us, by the way. They took on 300 and all of a sudden became really horrible. Monthly statements, from the accounting perspective, do you understand them? And do they provide backup for all the expenses associated with it? Do they understand the laws and liabilities in that state, the tenant-landlord laws? In California, the tenant-landlord laws are really in favor of the tenant. In Tennessee, one of the reasons why I invest there is because the tenant-landlord laws are really in favor of the landlord. You can get a tenant out in 2 weeks. It's amazing. Do they charge you for additional costs like repairs markups, advertising? The cheapest is not always the best. We've had managers at 6% that were absolutely horrible. So take a look at those. Interview them thoroughly. Teams of rehabbers. If you're doing this on your own, you want to have multiple teams, not just one. Because when you have one, their time slowly goes up, their cost slowly goes up, and their quality slowly goes down. And make sure you have those contracts with those teams, and you have incentives in place for their performance. If they get done faster, they get paid more. If it takes longer, you have a deduction on their labor hours. Those types of things are really important. Attorneys and CPAs. I don't pretend to know the tax law in the state of Arizona or, you know, in Maine or anywhere else. Get a CPA in that market. Get an attorney in that market where you're doing business. And you want multiple attorneys. There's eviction attorneys, liability attorneys, contract attorneys, and you want them in each state so that you know the laws going on in that state. Brokers and bankers and private lenders. We went through about 35 of them before we actually found ones that were reliable, that would do what they say they were going to do, and that would perform every time. They weren't just BSing us about, oh yeah, I can get it done, no problem. Every single one of them will tell you that. Now I found that bankers, when they say they're going to fund, it's a little bit more reliable because they're a direct source to the money. Okay, I'm not saying that brokers are unreliable. I'm just saying that they're a secondary source that they're actually going through to get the funds done. So they have a secondary outside underwriter that they may not have a really good working relationship with. But brokers can be really creative. They can shop your loan, get you the best deals, get you the best rates, and things like that as well. And private financing is very, very necessary if you're buying and renovating properties because you're not getting a traditional loan that way. I actually personally don't even like using traditional loans anymore. I'd rather use all private funds. It's 10 times easier, the returns are good for both parties involved, so why not? Affiliates, people that bring you resources. Everybody in the room needs some form of resource, whether it's capital, whether it's investments, whether it's additional team members. There's a slew of different resources that you're going to constantly need and constantly need to continue to build to invest correctly in real estate. And not everybody does not have those resources, and you have to constantly build them and network. Networking, the return on investment for networking is unbelievable. When I started networking on a consistent basis, 3 to 4 times a week, it started to become, my business exploded. Because you meet that many more people. And now with online marketing, you can network for a lot more people for a lot cheaper. Facebook is unbelievable. LinkedIn, Facebook, you guys definitely start learning about internet marketing if you're going to start networking. It's huge. Insurance agents, REO agents, become their best friend. Asset managers as well. Inspectors. You want to make sure you have an inspector that actually review those inspection reports. Does that look like an inspection that you want to review? Do they have detailed description in words and pictures explaining every little item? Do they get the little minute items involved? Those things can help you with negotiating. Selling agents, bird dogs, and appraisers, all important parts of your team. So let's look at some investment options as far as different options that we invest in, and you guys can take a look at the math on this and see how it works for your own situation if this is not interesting to you. So a typical investor on a buy and hold investment with us gets a property at 75 to 80% of the market value, turnkey, fully renovated with a tenant in place, if they don't want a joint venture with us. I personally don't want to sell the asset. I'd rather have joint venture investors than anything. So monthly cash flow minus vacancy, management, taxes, repairs, taxes and insurance and repairs. If you're going to compare it to other outside investments, take into consideration your depreciation benefits as well because of the tax implications associated with that. Now let's look at the cash flow. Assume we sell the property in 3 years at 95% of the value, that minus 7% in sales costs. That means in year 3 you'd be making about 13 grand on your money. So each year you make $78.36 a year, and in year 3 you make the $78.36 plus another 13. So your average return is 16.38% on your money by cashing in that equity. It's pretty interesting. So, and you're making above a 10% return here just with cash flow. Okay, those are the types of things you want to look at and see what you're comfortable with. You can also invest with 25% down. You get the best rates with 25% instead of 20% down now. Okay, and you still get positive cash flow even after the debt service. I will not sell a property to somebody if it's not projected to make positive cash flow after the debt service involved. Okay, I want to look at every situation for that person. Here's an example trust deed investment. So typically, in my opinion, I would never invest in a trust deed unless it's under 65% of the market value of that property. You want significant equity. This is your risk mitigation here. Your collateral is worth $100,000 and you're investing at 65. So if you have to foreclose and it costs you a couple $1,000s, you can resell that property for a profit. Okay? So whenever you're investing in notes, look at the collateral involved. So we typically, because they're low risk, we pay